Speak Up with Vernisa
and Jen.
It's time to speak up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vernisa.
Hey, y'all. This is Jen.
And this is our podcast, Speak Up. What's up, Jen?
Hey, girl.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Glad that we made it to episode 14 of our newest segment, SpeakUpJV Now.
Woo, y'all, we're finally in the teens.
Yes, most definitely, right? Time just be flying. For those of you that don't know, me and Jen are best friends. We create this podcast to use our voices to motivate people to overcome life's challenges through self-love and respect.
That's right, y'all. Whether you've been watching our episode all 4 years or just these past 14 episodes, you should still know that self-love and respect are two core values we hold near and dear to our hearts.
Yes, most definitely. But before we get started, a quick shout out to our amazing sponsors. Shout out to My Bar, located at 720 East Manchester in Inglewood, California. Get your nails, your lashes, your hair done. Ask for mine. Tell them that SpeakUpJV sent you. The Instagram is at myy.bar.
And shout out to Be Actual Natural. Why settle for less? All their products are created with you in mind for a goal to let your self-love show through your self-care. Their chemical-free hair and skincare products are handmade, plant-based, and free of fillers or preservatives. Treat yourself while you're taking care of yourself. Start your journey at www.beactualnatural.com or check them out on Instagram at beactualnatural.
Yes, those products are bomb, by the way. Just got to say that. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. You know, we back rolling. I hope May is going well for y'all, even though it flew.
For real.
And it flew. So best friend, what's our title for tonight? Speaking of May.
Tonight our episode is called Permission to Be Happy.
Yeah, so see, we in the middle of the year, so I really hope we're not still asking for permission to be happy out there or doing anything to hold us back.
Right. I think at this point, after everything we've all been through, right, like needing permission to be happy should be the last thing that we need to ask.
Yeah, we decided to name it that because tonight we're going to be talking about normalizing happiness in our lives and not waiting on anyone to do anything happy and to be happy for others. Sometimes we're in a time where it's not our happiest and other people around us are in their happy chapter. So it's about still showing that love and support for them as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love that we're talking about this because it's definitely an important topic to talk about. The middle of the year, it might be another reflection time for us, right? So it may be the time for us to realize, like, what kind of mentality have I been living in? Maybe not even just the past year, but the past few years, or, just your life in general. And if you haven't been incorporating as much happiness as you feel like you should, then right now is a really good time to start thinking about that. Or even, like you were saying, being happy for others, right? Sometimes we get so caught up in our own things that we forget that other people are also still living their lives and need that happiness to still spread around. And let's be real, right? If you can be happy for somebody else, more than likely that happiness is going to be contagious for yourself as well. And it can take your mind off of even like dark things that you may be going through at the moment in your own life.
That's so true. I feel like spreading a light brings more light. So I'm glad that you brought that up. So I want to say, too, if you're out there listening, feel free to go into the chat box, ask us questions, answer our questions, and engage in our discussion. So tonight's Ask Up question of the day is, are you afraid to take risk when it comes to your happiness? So I put a poll up on our Instagram page, and most people said no. So that's a good thing. And then we also asked the question online, and we have a few responses. So I'm going to go ahead and list them. Shout out to the Kitchen Jedi. He said, never. There's no need to waste time on the things that you don't enjoy. This applies to every aspect of your life, relationships, work, home, etc. Once you understand that falling and failing is a part of the process, you can look forward to take the risks you plan to take. I really like that. Shout out to Felix. He said, absolutely, working on it, though. It's tough because of the what if. What if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't actually make me happy? But you never know unless you take the risk. Shout out to Airborne Trey. He said, if it is for my happiness at the end of the day, then I'm going to take the risk and make it happen by any means. And also from Raul Del Soy, I'll take the risk. And honestly, it's super scary, but I know I can do hard things. Sometimes it may take a little longer for me to convince myself it's worth the repercussions that come with the risk. I'll take it ultimately. I sometimes got to be willing to sit in temporary discomfort for ultimate joy. So I love these answers. They was on it.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds like we've all been thinking about our happiness lately, and I think that's really important. I love how all of these answers are on different aspects of our lives, right? Which shows that we're all trying to be more balanced too. So I think these are way better answers than I was even expecting for myself to say too.
Right? So I guess we could go ahead and answer the question. So I would have to say, especially lately, I'll say the past couple of years, I've been willing to take those risks. I feel like I've actually been making my happiness a priority, and I'm at the point like, I don't, what's what I want to use. I'm like alleviating the people pleasing that comes with the happy, that comes with the guilt that you feel when you like choose your happiness, and also like, really highlighting like what's for me and what isn't, and knowing am I making the right decision for my happiness. Because sometimes too, like I feel like we'll surround ourselves with people who ultimately don't want us to be happy. So like they'll try to talk us out of like making a risk, or just doing something on your own that makes you happy. So I think that's
Yeah,
my
definitely. I mean, I feel like we both know that struggle, right? Of whether it's because we love our people, or people in our lives, and we're trying to keep them happy, we put ourselves on the back burner. But I have to agree with you on that. That I think, especially these past few months, I've been choosing myself a lot more lately. I mean, I feel like I've had no choice because of all the stuff that I've been going through physically. So my body's kind of like in that mode of, girl, it's your time, right? So it's actually given me a whole new perspective, even on what it means to be happy as an individual, right? Because sometimes we think, oh, I'll be happy when I reach this goal, whatever. But it's like I've been working on being happy with just what I have right now with myself, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, however I am at this moment. So for me, a lot of the happiness risks that I've been taking is more on the self acceptance side, so that I can be satisfied at any moment, no matter what life is throwing at me. It's definitely hard. Obviously, I have my days where I'm like, oh, dang, I don't like what I look like, or what I am telling myself for the day. But, those are the days that I try to pour myself or into myself a little bit more, so that I can achieve that ultimate happiness.
I love that, the ultimate happiness. And I think that comes with too, like we're us learning to celebrate our milestones. I actually tweeted this the other day, like be grateful for what you have in this exact moment. And I think sometimes when we're, like you said, we're on our way to something, or on our way to that happiness, we forget what happiness is already in our lives. You know what I mean? Like those little things that we ignore every day. Like that sip of water you just took. Like I know that just made you happy just now. So it's like, when I'm learning to like really look at that, and versus like looking through the perspective of like what's wrong with my life or what's not working versus what is at the moment.
I love that too, because it forces us to step out of that even like victim mentality, right? I mean, let's be real. There's so much going on in all different aspects of the world, and maybe even in our own personal lives. So it's easy to get stuck in, oh, I'm living in this type of pain, or I'm feeling this type of way because of the injustices going on around me. Which, don't get me wrong, of course, care, right, about everything and whatever you want to care about. But it also comes to a point where, don't just live in that type of identity. Just like, this person who, let's say I'm always happy, right? There's nothing ever wrong with me, nothing ever wrong with my life. Then ultimately I'm also living in that tunnel of obliviousness, because then I'm not paying attention to things going on around me. So it's how do we find that balance, right? Of like, how can I be happy enough with my life, but then also still be aware of what's going on, and how I'm ultimately reacting to others, or even if impacting others in my life. So it's definitely something that needs to be worked on every day. I would say it's even like a muscle, to try and practice that happiness. But I think the number one way to start is to not even ask for that permission. Like, give yourself that permission and tell yourself that you are allowed to be happy, even if it's a brief moment, even if it's a good image day, self-image day, or even if it's very minor, that you're happy about the breakfast you had this morning or something. Like, allow yourself to celebrate those little moments, because then it's when the bigger stuff starts to hit again, that we're past that moment of happiness, that dang, I should have enjoyed that a little bit more.
Yeah, I like what you said too, like still like being in touch with reality, even if like you're in a happy mode. Like I always think, whose happiness I'm trying to reach is my pawpaw. Like he's one of those people, even if the world's crashing around, he has this like settled soul, you know what I mean? Even when things are going crazy. And it's like, I learned too the importance of like having that peace within yourself, even if you're in a chaotic environment, because you could be in a peaceful environment, but if there's war going on within yourself, I think that's how people be at like a fun place and still not or still not having a good time. So it's like that's why it's important we keep tapping into ourselves, without anyone else, literally like what is going on inside of us, that the thoughts no one else could hear. How are we speaking to ourselves, the thoughts that no one hears us saying to ourselves? What does that sound like? And I think when we create that comfort zone within ourselves, we're able to still be that light, be happy for others, and then still be calm even when chaos is happening around us at the same time. And I want to say too, if you are happy about things, don't be afraid to share them. I think sometimes too, obviously when someone's not in the best space and we feel like, oh, I don't want to be too like I don't want to be too happy around certain people. And it's like I'm not saying you gotta throw this big party around people that are like obviously having a bad day, but I feel like if you have a genuine circle, even if they're going through something, they should still be able to like at least say congrats or something, still have that. Like it doesn't mean your light has to be fully dim because the person around you is not having the best.
Yeah, and I'm gonna touch on that obviously, but I would just say can confirm your papa is just peace. Like, I feel like he's the embodiment of peace. So I agree. I aspire to have that peace and happiness in my life as well. But with what you were saying, like I think that's big, especially if you are having happy moments, and you feel like you constantly cannot share it with this person or this type of group of people that you're hanging out with, then maybe that's where it's time to start reevaluating, are these people even like, is it a mutually beneficial type of relationship? Because don't get me wrong, it's nice to have people that you can vent to, when you have problems and you feel like your world is crashing down and you just really need to talk. That's awesome. I love that. But there's also that where who can you share your successes with, your joy with, and even to trying to be that person where even if your own life is falling apart, you can still be happy for that other person. You can still go to their graduation with them, go to their wedding with them, enjoy the time with them and enjoy living life with them. Because as we all know, we're all on our own journey. So we're all in our own chapters. Right. Which means that right now, this person may be having their happiness chapter and they really want to share that. They're allowed to share that as well. And what I really don't like is even like on social media, sometimes I feel like it's almost a crime to share those happy moments, because either a lot of people get offended or they're like, oh, all these things going on in the world and you're celebrating this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like to a certain degree, we should be allowed to express our happiness. Like I said, even if it's for something minor, if I'm happy that I had a good breakfast this morning, you don't know what I'm going through. Maybe that's the only full breakfast I've been able to have this week. So the fact that I'm happy about it, I should be able to share it and enjoy it, right? So you never know what struggles somebody had to go through or is currently going through, but they're able to find one moment of happiness, one moment of peace. They should be allowed to express that as well. I mean, we give a whole platform, to people sharing their mental illnesses and, all the things that they're going on in the world. Why can't we do the same when somebody's trying to share their successes and their joys?
I love that. Yeah, you shouldn't feel guilty for having that light or being able to smile even on like a rainy day. And I want to say too, it's important to take risk in your life in order to achieve that happiness. So these risks can be different things. It could be that trip you always want to go on. It could be a risk of you having to cut some people off who are close to you, but they're not happy for you being in those happy spaces. I actually I do a lot of thinking and stuff, and I was like really realizing, like I actually tweeted something similar to this too, like you really see people too in your happy chapters who's really there for you. We always talk about, oh yeah, who was there for you in the hard times and this and that. That's true. But to an extent, when you are in a happy space, who can actually be happy that you're there? Because you got some people, they got so comfortable with you in those lower spaces that when you are in a happy space, it's like it sheds a light on whatever they need to work on. And sometimes people have that secret animosity and don't want to see you in those lights. So it's like that too is something you have to be cautious of. And I think that's a good time to really watch your friends or watch your lovers or family members, whatever, people around you. So it is time for our tweet up segment. So y'all know I like to be on Twitter. Something that I tweeted this week that goes with tonight's episode is, I can't sit around and wait for people. I will get up and do my own thing. So if y'all know me personally, y'all know that's me right there. And, I say this because, one thing I admire about myself, speaking of happiness and just, giving ourselves some praise, I don't wait for nobody. I like that. Like, I kind of like the fierce spirit that I have. Like, if there's something I really want to do, like whether I have a group with me or I don't mind going solo, Like I'll show up to a party by myself, whatever. I'll go to a bar by myself, whatever. Like anything that I want to do. If I want to do that in that moment, I don't have anyone who wants to go with me or anything. Like, I don't mind getting up or there's an idea I want to start. There's no one's, I don't mind that. And I think sometimes you have to be okay with being 10 toes down for yourself or with the people who do want to do that with you to have your happiness. Because I feel like we waste a lot of time waiting for other people's validation, waiting if someone's going to join us or, this and that. And I think, you really get to know yourself in those moments when you go after those things that you truly want to do. And without, sometimes you're not going to have that backup. So what do you do? Stop with your dream, stop that happiness because no one else wants to join you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really big thing to talk about, and this is even like for people who have families or have bigger commitments, whatever. Like, I think it's still important to nurture that relationship with yourself because you never stop being yourself no matter what your circumstances are. Of course, yeah, depending on what your personal life is, you may have certain commitments to have, maybe compromise in certain areas, whatever. Like, but I think if there's something that genuinely makes you happy and you're able to do it, and even if you don't have that support, but it's something that is burning in you in a healthy way, then I say definitely go for it as best as you can. It might take you a longer route. You may not know where to start, so you may have to start with some research, whatever it is. But if there's something that you really want to try and it's a good thing for you, then I say, why not? This reminds me of when I first started like my fitness journey. This was when I first started, like 10 years ago. I was afraid to start Pilates because I had always heard like, oh, Pilates doesn't do much for you, blah, 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 and stuff like that. But if any of you have ever tried Pilates out there, you know that is a lie. Pilates is so damn hard, but so damn rewarding. But I didn't know anybody who had done Pilates before. It's just what I had heard through the grapevine and stuff. And I was like, oh, I don't know, whatever. So eventually I got into it and it's something that I fell in love with, and even until now, like not many people that at least I interact with do Pilates on a regular. So sometimes I'll just have to do it on my own. And even though this is something more on a minor scale, it's still a good lesson for me because I think that was one of the first times where I was like, well, Jen, if you don't do it, but you want to, who's going to make you do it? Who's going to actually tell you, yeah, this is good for you until you actually try it. So that's just a piece of advice that maybe if you want to take it, that, if you want to try something and nobody else has done it, then, hey, maybe you got to be the first and maybe only one to do it your way. But there's nothing wrong with trying something and then seeing if it works out for you and seeing if it's something that benefits you in the long run too.
I love that. Yeah, and hobbies are good for you, and I think you learn more about yourself when you're like, oh, I really actually do like to do this. And, this is something new and something to add on to your list. Like I've always liked cooking, but I've really liked cooking recently, like even more, like, and I'm like, yeah, that's something, you just find those little things, nothing's going to hold you back from trying it. And, I want to say this too, happiness comes from listening to your internal desires too. So, I think of how many times have we cared what somebody thought and we silenced that voice in our head that wanted to try something new or go somewhere or whatever. And it's like, you look back when you actually do it, you actually feel good that you did it. I went to New York recently. And, the old me would have, oh, I should save. Oh, I should just listen. I just said, F it, I'm going to go. And I am, so to this moment, I am so happy I just went and did something that I wanted to do. Didn't care who, went alone, just took a trip and left. And I think sometimes you just kind of have to have those healthy, of course, impulsive, happiness moments.
No, I'm really glad you brought that up. This is kind of like sidetracking, but it still has to do with obviously the episode. I know we sometimes are like planning for the future, right? We have our goals in mind, all these plans, but sometimes, like you were saying, you have to take those spontaneous moments, whether it is trips, whether it's going out with a friend somewhere or doing whatever you got to do, but like not necessarily planned. And we may have those certain doubtful moments of like, oh, dang, well, did I spend too much, whatever. But honestly, I've been realizing like memories are so priceless. And the more that you're creating on this life, then the more fun you have along the way, the more chances you give yourself to even create that happiness. And then let's be real, right? The future is not even guaranteed for any of us. So when we're too busy spending time trying to plan for it and we may never get there, then we're also losing so many moments in the present that we should have been taking and could have enjoyed better if we weren't so busy looking ahead. So sometimes just really focus on the moment, or say, oh dang, yes, I'm gonna try this. It reminds me of when we had that talk with Jessica Hart about the yes season, right? And how saying yes to things you normally probably wouldn't say yes to or wouldn't want to. I think that's a really good part of the episode if y'all want to go check that out. That would be great to apply to your life if you're scared to try something that might make you happy.
I love that. And I want to say too, when you do your own thing, you ain't gonna have time to be worrying about someone's negative opinions. I think you have to stand firm in yourself and be more sure of yourself. That's something I had to work on for years, being sure of my decisions, feeling worthy of the good decisions. Once I got past that hump, it became easier for me to do the things I want to do without being worried about the such and such things. I feel like you could be doing something stupid or something smart, someone's going to still throw something or have something to say about it. So it's like, in the day, it's really about getting to know yourself. And I think too, I've been learning a difference, learning to view mistakes differently too. Cause I'm like, if it's meant to be a learning lesson, it's going to be that. If it's meant to be correct for me, it's going to be that. I feel like, sometimes too, some of the decisions that we make are meant to be mistakes.
Yep.
How do we grow? How do we learn as people if we don't make any mistakes? So sometimes that just happens naturally. Your mind is pushing you to make a mistake because you're meant to make that mistake. And sometimes, we know better and we still kind of burn our hand, but then it's like, we have to get back on track. So, end of the day too, they're going to have an opinion regardless.
Yeah, exactly. We can't please anybody. And at the end of the day, why would you want to, right? As long as you're pleasing yourself in a healthy way, of course. I feel like I have to keep reiterating that.
No, we'll keep saying that.
Yeah. Then I think, by all means, go for it. So I definitely like that you threw that out there. I was going to say too, I just think we need to learn to start living our life for us and really stop worrying about what other people are saying about us or what they might say or anything like that. Because we're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I feel like we really need to emphasize that, especially when it comes to happiness. There's so many different ways to express ourselves, whether it's through our clothing, through our hobbies, the ways that we talk, the things that we listen to or give our time to. So if that's something that is truly yours, then whenever you are probably having a moment of doubt or, a down moment, if you go back to those ways of expression, then it's almost an easier way to get back up into that happiness, especially if you're going through a hard time. I think it's important to still have those outlets of happiness so that we don't forget who we are in the process as well.
I love that, because I think when we focus on other people's validation, we forget who we are. We become like other people. Think about it, because you're forcing yourself to like what somebody else like or do what they want you to do. You lose your own identity. And then what happens if they change who they are? You really don't know who you are. And I think, that's not a fun place to be when we're lost and not really sticking to what we truly want to do. So I'm glad you brought that up. So it is time for our Life Up segment. So that's when we take the topic and relate it to today's world. So Bessie, what is our Life Up for tonight?
We kind of touched up on this a little bit earlier, but obviously this is what we'll focus on for this segment, is people not being happy for others when they are in a bad space. I know this is like a big thing, and I know it's hard, obviously. Even for myself, sometimes I have to check myself when I'm not in the best headspace, but somebody's like sharing great news with me. I have to really oh shoot, put yourself in the place of this person. And then to me, I'm taking it now too as if this person feels comfortable enough to share their happiness with me or even a moment of happiness, then that means they find me important enough to have that moment with, right? Or to even share it with. So might as well make that person feel special as well and let them know, hey, I hear you and I'm so happy that you're happy. But, obviously I think we need to take that day by day and step by step, especially if we're one of those people who tend to shut ourselves out when we're in a bad space.
Yeah, no, that's a big one. Because I think about, being on the other end of it. Have you ever told someone some good news and then they're just like, It's like, that's not, I feel like it does, it puts salt on how you feel, even if, you're still in your happy space, so it's like, how am I coming off to this person when they're sharing that news to me? And then another thing is too, people always living in a victim mentality. So we feel like others have to live in it too. So it's like, something could happen, but that doesn't mean the other person next to you has to be going through that too. And I think it's like distinguishing what is your battle and what is their battle.
Yeah.
It's nothing wrong bending to the person and stuff, but it's like, we have people who really will try to anchor you down with them because of what they're in. And I think that is huge. That is a big thing that we see around, like on social media, the people that we know. And it's just about, learning to still give people their flowers, even when yours ain't really growing as fast at the moment.
Yeah, let's be real, y'all. We're all living our own lives, our own books here. So we need to remember to have that grace with each other. That as much as misery loves company, whatever, why don't we normalize joy loving company too, right? Like, why does feeling joy have to be such a lonely experience? Like, I've never understood that. So I think that's one of the ways to fix it, is to normalize letting people share their happiness and being happy for them in return. I think those have to go hand in hand, because if you have one without the other, then it's not true happiness on either end. Like, can you imagine, like you were saying, being that person sharing that happiness and then seeing the other person not really reacting? Like, that kind of bums your day, and it dims that light on whatever experience you were just sharing. So always make sure that you're trying to uplift other people around you, especially your loved ones. It's not fair. I'm sure the rest of the world tells us we shouldn't be a certain way, we shouldn't be happy about this. We don't need those people closest to us doing the same thing.
Oof. And I love what you said about the joy needing company too. That's a good phrase. I never heard that before. It's a really good phrase. And also too, figure out why you aren't happy for others. And today that's something deep rooted that's going on. There's a reason that's playing out. And I think when we can come out of sometimes we act in our selfishness. We're in our own world sometimes, and we think like everything, but sometimes it's not just about us. Sometimes there's stuff that's happening simultaneously with our own world. So I think that's another thing. And I want to say this too. This is a big one, I think, with social media. Be happy for others even when they take the risk that you're scared to take. So I mean, how many of us we stopped on ourselves, and if someone else went ahead and did it because they really wanted to and they actually accomplished it. I guess big on social media, people comparing themselves, watching other people's lives. Dang, they went and did that. But instead of like showing that love and support for that person taking that risk, people become haters or start doubting them or belittling with what they started. Whole time they wanted that too, and it's like you never know who really wanted what you went after.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, most of the time when somebody is reacting negatively to good news, it's just a projection of what they feel within themselves, right? Whether it's those limitations they're placing on themselves or things that they're too scared to do, or just plain jealousy and envy that is playing out. So I see that we got a comment from Rada. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly, but they said jealousy and selfishness comes into play. Be true for others, say next versus hating. Yes, absolutely. I definitely the world is too big for us to be dealing with the haters, right? Especially too directly. And it's also, time is too short for us to be putting all that energy into somebody else's life, especially when they're trying to impact us in a negative way. And I want to say this too, I think we need to stop being so overly sensitive about everything. Like, we need to normalize people having different perspectives, different opinions, different sources of happiness also than ourselves, as long as it's healthy, of course. Again, have to reiterate. People are allowed to have different opinions and different lives. That's what makes life so interesting, that you come across all these types of worldviews and, maybe ideas you've never even thought about, or ways of seeing things that you have never even pictured. Because if we're so stuck in our bubble and the way we're used to society living a certain way, then we're never going to open ourselves up to something else that, one, maybe just such a good learning experience, like you were saying, whether you agree with it or not, at least you're learning. Or two, a different way of living from the misery that maybe you've been having in your head, or that you've been overly focusing on constantly in your life. So when we stop being so sensitive to things, we also stop taking things so personal. And I think once we do that, we really start to open up those doors for that happiness, and allowing ourselves to see, what, if I can be happy even in just this moment and nobody else is for me, then that's what matters, right? If I don't want to focus on everything that's going on in my life or in the world for this one moment that I can have just to myself, then I'm going to do that. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean, you're not checking up on people or anything. It just means for that one moment, I'm not going to be overly sensitive. I'm not going to be worried about anything else. I'm going to be checking in with myself and making sure that I'm making myself happy.
Yeah, I think the overly sensitive sometimes, not all the time, sometimes roots from like an insecurity of our own decision. Because I think why else would we care? With I mean, if you're for sure you're standing 10 toes on that decision that you made, and you're really happy with that decision that you make, you know what I mean? It shouldn't matter what someone else thinks, So I think that's something too. Like we all work on. And yeah, let others be happy and celebrate them too. So y'all know what time it is. It is time for our drink up water segment. So if you're listening out there, please pull out some water and drink some water. And Jen has a water fact for tonight.
That's right, y'all. So tonight's water fact is you can take care of your brittle nails by sipping enough water. If your nails tend to constantly break and peel, it may be a sign that your body is dehydrated. Start consuming more water to promote nail growth and also to prevent flaky cuticles. Of course, this is if you're within, relatively healthy levels of your body and stuff, and you may be a little dehydrated, then you notice your nails are a little more brittle. And I think this is really important, especially if you are trying to have healthy, strong nails. Those are the ones that allow us to touch. They allow us to have certain diseases not enter our body. So we definitely need our nails and taking care of them as much as possible. And if we can help our body and our nails a little bit, even just by making a difference as drinking water, then I definitely say go for it. So that was the water fact for tonight.
Yeah, lovely one, by the way. And back to the episode. Looks like we have a comment. Rada said, this is the sensitive generation. You can't have different opinions. People are sheeple. Oh, people plus people. Everyone must think the same in their eyes. This is, literally. I think even like on social media, you could comment disagreeing about something, and it's this big old thing. So it's like,
and it's kind of sad because I feel like that's a big perk of the internet, right? Especially with social media, that you get to meet, even virtually, all kinds of people, and you get to see those worldviews that I was talking about. But yeah, if like we have a different opinion from somebody, then all of a sudden we're the antagonist, and we shouldn't be watching this video and disagreeing and things like that. And it's really sad because when did we become this intolerant society? I don't think that's what we were trying to stand for when we were fighting for our freedom of speech and different things like that. Like, I just think we've lost sight of what that actually means. Of course, within healthy bounds, obviously, but I agree with you 100%, and it sucks that we have to tread lightly no matter what we're talking about these days. But unfortunately, it is what it is. And sometimes we may say things on here that people don't agree with, and that's okay too, right? If you don't like it, you can keep scrolling.
And I must add on, it's crazy because me and Jen did a body positivity episode. I feel like that was the episode that we got the most disagree on. Like, it's crazy how that sparked that type of conversation. That's another topic, but I just made me think of that by saying that. So, but yeah, back into the episode. Honestly though, also too, normalize having different hobbies and interests from your loved ones too. I think that's a part of the happiness as well. How many of us grew up in a household where we were forced to, they wanted us to be a certain way. We had to do this and this and this. And it's like, I think that's why sometimes people struggle with their identity when they get older. Because when they were younger, they didn't get the chance to do certain things, really be the person that inside of them was telling them to be.
Yeah. And obviously it depends on, your culture, how you grew up and things like that. But I definitely agree that hobbies should be something that all of us should have, as long as it makes us happy and it's not hurting anybody. Then I definitely 100% back you up on that. And we were talking about this earlier, right? That being happy with our own life doesn't mean we stop caring about other people. On the contrary, like, if I feel like my good news may cheer you up, then I would hope that I would be right in that, right? I would hope that I know my loved ones enough to say, hey, if I share this news, it might not take away all of their pain, but at least it can make them smile for a moment, be happy for someone else for a moment, not think about their own life for a moment. Like, it's just the little things in life that sometimes bring us closer to people. And if we can share our joys with each other and build that intimacy, then why not? Why not strengthen those bonds with somebody, especially sharing something good, letting those endorphins come out, right? And just being happy together.
I love that. And then also too, this doesn't mean you're not empathetic to people who are going through something when you're in a happy mode. It's just really about, being able just to still be that light. I went to a conference recently when I was out in Maryland recently. And there's this guy that spoke, and he has a very happy spirit, like very, like even more church up to me, like very like la la la. And he said this guy told him that he didn't like him. And he's like, why don't you like me? And he's like, because you're always happy. And he's like, why would that make you feel some way? Basically, long story short, the lesson that he learned from this, he said he had to hear somebody tell him that, because he said sometimes we're always at a 10, right? And you're probably dealing with someone who's at a 2, but the thing is, for an effective relationship with anyone or connection, maybe bring it down just a little bit, but they have to meet you halfway and bring it up just a little bit. And I found that very interesting, because I'm always sometimes super hyper, and it's like, it doesn't mean don't be happy hyper for Nisa, but it's okay to like tone it down just a little bit. But if the other person's taking responsibility and toning it up, if they're way down here, because no, I'm not going. If I'm at a 10, I'm not going to meet you at a 1.
Right.
And if you have a 1, I'm not saying you got to meet me at a 10, but sometimes too in life we have to kind of do this. So I had to share that along, because this kind of goes with the happy news and the sad news at the same time.
Oof, that was very well said. I love the balancing, especially. Yeah, that's not fair that you have to constantly dim your light just because somebody else can't meet you where you're at, right? And then that goes again with reevaluating the group that you're close with, if that tends to happen more often than not. And I think we need to learn to enjoy those happy moments, because let's be real, we all know bad moments either are coming, or we're currently living in one, or just recently surpassed one. And there's going to be more to come, right? Unfortunately, yeah, life throws curveballs at us, things that we may not see coming. So if we know all of that, why can't we just take a moment to take a break from that and still be happy about even little things in our lives? Recently I was reading something about like living with happiness and grief at the same time, because obviously when you experience grief, you lose a loved one or something, that pain never fully goes away, right? Maybe, yeah, it doesn't hurt as much as it did the very first day that you lost that person, but it doesn't mean that it ever fully heals, right? It's like that scar that just constantly is there. But it doesn't mean either that you're not allowed to have any more happy moments after that. Like, just because a loved one is no longer here, do you think they would want to see you not living any more happy moments in your life? And this doesn't necessarily mean with somebody else. It can mean, again, like we've been saying, with yourself, right? If you finally have a moment of peace where you're not feeling that grief take over your day anymore, or you're not feeling it consume your mind, while you're at work or something, then you're allowed to enjoy that moment of happiness too. And I loved reading that, because it also takes away like the guilt, of living with that grief and feeling like you're not honoring that person if you move forward or anything. But let's be real, if you lose a loved one and then you're still living your life, you may feel like that survivor's guilt of like, oh dang, why am I still here? But you're still here for whatever reason. And if you allow yourself to enjoy those happy moments, maybe within those you will find that purpose for why you're still here, or at least this person would have wanted me to enjoy this moment, so let me enjoy this moment. And I think this is really important, even just in life in general. It doesn't just have to be with grief, but I love how it was put into grief, because I feel like that's one of the biggest intense emotions that we may feel at times, and sometimes we don't know how to move forward. So sometimes it's a matter of, yeah, I'm still carrying this scar on my back, but I'm also still allowing the moments where I can take a break from carrying that scar all the time.
That was a powerful example. Thank you for bringing that up, and going off to what you said about like enjoying the happy moments, and because the sad moments are coming. You actually taught me that. Obviously we've been best friends for 10 years, but I don't know if you can recall, but there's plenty of times I'm like, dang, why am I so happy right now? And I'm like, oh, and then you used to tell me that, like, okay, enjoy it. And I think you're someone in my life who's actually taught me that, like, it's okay if things are okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, something doesn't always have to be wrong. And I think too, especially if you grew up in chaos, or you a dysfunctional family or certain things, I think when you do have those breathers, it's like, okay, well, why is it so good right now? What's gonna happen? And I think too, like, being in a way happier space now, in a better space, I'm learning that even if it's a long period of happiness, that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still worthy of having it. It doesn't have to be like, oh, only a day of happiness or a week of it. Even if it's multiple months, a whole year of a great year, that's still normal, and it's okay to enjoy that. So yeah, that's going off of that.
Ooh, well said. Yes, definitely happy to hear that, because those happy moments may be rare, so we need to allow ourselves to enjoy them.
Effective happiness too. So it is time for our quote of segment. So I know my bestie is a quotey, so she has a quote tonight that goes with tonight's episode.
So tonight's quote is, "In the end, people will judge you anyways, so don't live your life impressing others. Live your life impressing yourself," by Eunice. And I love this quote. It puts the perspective right back onto yourself. It allows you to remember how much in control of your emotions you really are, or even just how you react to the things that are happening around you. Especially that last part about live your life impressing yourself. If you've been feeling lately like, oh, I could do more with my life, or I've been wanting to do XYZ with my life, then this is definitely a moment to be doing that. And since we've been talking about like how we may not always be everybody's cup of tea, we're not always going to impress other people. So if I'm constantly looking for more people to impress, I'm bound to come across more people I'm not going to, right? And if I let that discourage me, then ultimately I stop living my life. So with this quote, it's just a reminder of, as long as I'm impressed with myself and I feel like I'm doing the best that I can, then obviously I will continue striving for that. Again, as long as it's healthy.
Oh, I love that. That was definitely well said. And whenever I'm about to do something challenging that, like, say you don't feel like doing it, but you're gonna do it anyway, I always tell myself I'm gonna be proud of myself if I do it. Like that's been like this mantra I kind of said to myself. Like even like with running, like if I go an extra mile that I normally wouldn't do, I'm like I'll be proud of myself if I actually do that extra mile. Like and it's been I can't explain it. It's like when I tell myself that I end up actually accomplishing whatever it is, because you're right. It's like I'm so focused now on impressing Bernice, impressing who I am, versus like because when we do stuff for other people, it's not enough pressure. I don't think you're not. You care what people think, but I feel like ultimately, if you're letting yourself down, that's the worst. If you're making yourself proud, that's the part that matters the most. So I think that's what sure that mantra I've been using that's been helping me.
Oof, that's a big one. Yeah, and it keeps that eye on the prize mentality and even eye on the happiness mentality.
Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely really big. And obviously we've touched up a little bit about how it does look different for everybody, right? Like the hobbies you may have may be different from everybody in your family, everybody in your friend group, but if it makes you happy, then why not? And I think we need to normalize that too, that happiness isn't one way. Like I would even say happiness isn't even one type of color. I don't know about y'all, but like when I think of happiness, I think of like the color yellow or the color orange, whatever. But maybe your happiness color is purple, or blue or something, and that should definitely be okay. Like again, this is what makes life interesting. This is what makes people so interesting too, that oh dang, they didn't have the means to do this, but because they wanted it so badly and they knew it was going to make them happy, then they went after it in this type of way. And I think that's really awesome to even figure out, because you don't know what type of path this person is creating, or even what type of ideas that might get started in your own head. So definitely remind yourself that if your happiness looks a little bit different from others, as long as it's healthy and it's good for you and you're genuinely working to get there, then that's okay.
I love that. And also too, free yourself from the shackles of seeking validation. And I want to go a little deeper with that. I think another like thing that's problematic with seeking validation is sometimes we fake our happiness, because we're looking for that validation to show we're okay and show like, oh yeah, this is it. And I think too, one of my cousins used to always tell me, never lie to yourself, and I think with this happiness conversation that we're having, yeah, is an internal like happiness, or is it this idea that we have of happiness, or idea that someone else said that happiness is supposed to look like on us? So I think when we really dig deep, we're not going to be stuck in those rooted things, or like with social media, put in the facade that I'm happy. I have to show that I'm smiling, show that this is making me happy. When we go home, we're crying when we're alone, you know what I mean? Because we're really not, so I think that's everything that goes with self-love and inner peace, is that deep rooted honesty, connection within ourselves.
That part, to being honest, you are the only person you can't lie to yourself or lie to. So
yeah.
Definitely being mindful of that. In the end, we don't want to have any regrets, wishing we would have made other choices that could have made us happy. I think this is, I want to say like, this is one of my biggest non-physical fears, is not making myself happy, is living a life that I would regret in the end, even though, I haven't done everything I've wanted to do in my life up until this point. Am I satisfied with the choices that I've made? Yeah, because at the end of the day, I'm seeing what type of woman I'm becoming as well. And I'm excited to see what else I can become, how much stronger I can get, how much more knowledge I can obtain along the way, even with the mistakes I may make along the way, the things that I may say, and then be like, oh, I could have said it a different way. But that's part of the experience of life. There's so many lessons in there, and it's about what you do with those lessons that can lead you to that happiness. So I don't know about y'all, but in the end, yeah, I don't want to have any regrets with my life.
Yeah, right. And I think about Felix's comment on our AXO question about the what ifs, and it's true. And it's like, do you want to walk around with all those what ifs? Like, you ever been somewhere and you wanted to do something you didn't do, and you were thinking about it the whole day, like, dang, I should have did that. I should like, and I cannot stand that feeling. I'm being real with you. Like, it feels so much better when you just do it, and then you like at least see what happens, and then you can judge from that. So that's a good point to bring up. So it is time for our wrap up segment. So how does this relate to self love? Self love is loving yourself enough to take those risks to push yourself to those happy moments, and also loving yourself enough to love other people enough to be happy for them in their happiness moments as well.
Yeah, never forget about your loved ones, y'all. Always give people their flowers, right? I mean, we've had a whole episode on this before where it's not just in the literal sense, but let people know that you're happy for them, you're proud of them, you see their accomplishments. You don't know how much that might push somebody. I think one thing I've learned too is that sometimes, we may have a loved one who we want so badly to understand that maybe the decisions they're making in their life are not the best. And we may want to do that tough love or whatever. But sometimes I've learned that acknowledging the good things that they've done pushes them to do more good things, and then ultimately leave those mistakes or leave those bad decisions behind, and then they start seeking a different route. So just reminding ourselves too that kindness does go a long way. Being happy for others goes a long way, because then it also lets them know that they're seen. And we're talking about people wanting to be seen these days and wanting to be heard. So sometimes sharing in their happiness lets them know that you care.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to tell people too that you're inspired by them too. And that you're motivating them. Y'all know I've been on my running journey, and I have my days where it ain't my best run, or I have my good runs, and sometimes I'm like, oh, am I out there? And one of my friends, she tagged like 10 people on Instagram that motivated her to work out, and I was one of them. And and I didn't even, I was like, well, like, I was looking at myself as like a work, but what I'm trying to say is the fact you don't know who's watching. And I think too, like, keep spread, like, I will always spread my moments. I ran, I finished today, and that's me just shedding my good news. But you don't know who that's motivating too. So that goes off what we said earlier about don't be afraid to share that good news. If you reach a new milestone, you did it, you got a faster time today, whatever, because you don't know who's watching and who's being inspired. And I want to say this too, some things are meant to be experienced on your own. So I want to reiterate that. So we're in the middle of the year. Let's stop waiting for people. Yes, you can see who's gonna join the train. Nobody want to join. That don't mean you don't have to do it because no one else wants to join you, or or if you have to meet a new group, that has that similar interest, so you can do whatever it is that you're gonna do. You know what I mean? So it's just something about like kind of like being fierce. That's we only go around this once. Let's take control of our lives and do the things that we really want to do, and not wait for no one's validation.
Oof, that's a really big one, because if you've ever had to start your life over somewhere, right, whether it's in a completely new place, new job, even new friends, new relationship, whatever it is, how scary that feeling can be of, am I going to fail? Are people going to like me? Am I going to be successful? All these XYZ questions, which are valid, of course. But sometimes you are the only one who's going to have that answer. And it's going to be dictated by the type of decisions that you make along the way, the type of things that you say, just different experiences that you're going to have, that even if it's caused by somebody else or with somebody else, at the end of the day, what you're doing with that experience is what's going to tell you where your happiness lies. And sometimes that means, like we've been saying, letting go of old friendships or old relationships, or just doing things on your own, going on a scary journey, moving somewhere else, whatever it is, that you're just going to have to be okay with being alone for a little bit until you figure out if that's something that you want to do.
Oh, that was well said. And what is our wrap up for tonight?
In the end, y'all, don't be afraid to spread the happiness around. Sorry. Don't be afraid to spread the happiness around, as well as making decisions that would make you happy and live a healthy life in return. This is a big message that we want to share. Share the happiness, but also make happiness a priority in your life.
Yes, and you'll see everything else just fall into place. I think, I feel like when we do that, we're putting that signal out there, and we start attracting more of that around us. Because that's when you're in that chaotic mindset, that's what you bring.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Oh, that was funny. I started to laugh at that. You're happy, right? Have a good laugh too. Call a friend and just laugh. Like that's it. That's our secret right there. Shoot. We appreciate y'all tapping into our 14th episode of our newest segment, Speak Up JV Now. Well, before we go, a quick shout out to our amazing sponsors. Shout out to My Bar, located at 720 East Manchester in Inglewood, California. Get your nails, your lashes, your hair done, even tooth gems. Actual Mind, tell them that Speak Up JV sent you. The Instagram is at nyy.bar.
And shout out to Be Actual Natural. Why settle for less? All their products are created with you in mind, for a goal to let your self-love show through your self-care. Their chemical-free hair and skincare products are handmade, plant-based, and free of fillers or preservatives. Treat yourself while you're taking care of yourself. Start your journey at www.beactualnatural.com or check them out on Instagram at beactualnatural.
Yes, most definitely. But we love y'all. Thank y'all again. We will possibly be back next week. We'll keep y'all in tune. But make sure y'all check us out on our other platforms. We're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all that. Twitter at SpeakUpJV, Instagram at SpeakUpJV. We love y'all.
Love y'all.
Bye.